All right, if you can't think of ideas easily, your brain just isn't functioning properly right now. So I've thought of 3 habits that I use daily that pretty much let me never run out of ideas when I'm writing. The first habit I had to learn was journaling and kind of documenting all the ideas that I come up with. If you want to write the next Harry Potter, that's not all just going to come at once. It starts with like one little idea and it will grow and grow and grow. And to be able to keep up with the growth of your story, you need to have a lot of different little seeds that you can eventually compile together to fit in your story. So a few years ago, I started a document with all the different story arc ideas I have, and I have a Google Slides with all my characters. When I think of a piece of cool dialogue that I might want to use, I'll write that down. I basically have a list of so many different ideas, and they don't have to be complete ideas. They just have to be small little seeds that can grow into something bigger. So for example, I'll see like this thematic character arc that I might like, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll take that, right? I'm watching a movie and I'm like, that is a sick character design. I'll take that. Thank you very much. And a good way to not like plagiarize or anything is like, you just take specific elements. Like I said, it can be so small. You could like the hairstyle of a specific character. And what I do is I compile all those little ideas, and eventually I'll think of an idea that might need someone with that kind of character arcs. It might need a specific type of environment that I've already thought of. And I basically just combine all these different ideas together to create one solid idea that I can use moving forward. You basically don't want to ever lose your ideas, obviously. So writing them down in either a journal, or I use Google Docs, which is free, it just helps to make sure you don't lose anything. But more importantly, you basically never run out of ideas. Throughout the last few years, I've thought of so many different ideas, and I haven't even used all of them, which is fine because that's just a part of my assets now. Like, I own those ideas, and even if I'm not using them right now, I will eventually. And, maybe I don't use some of them, but that's fine. I have an entire catalog of characters, names, dialogue, locations, literally anything I might ever need. And I can mix, match, play around with them whenever I need to. So the second habit I learned was actively learn to have an open mind and just to be curious. And when I say learning, I don't just mean like, oh, you sit in the class at school and you kind of like just, it goes in one ear and goes out the other and you didn't actually learn anything. I mean, to really process that information and get inspired by it. Learning is not always an active action. Learning, to me at least, is kind of a mindset and just like this passive thing that you always need to have turned on. So the best way I learn is just by exploring things. You basically learn things everywhere. I mean, I learn things all the time on YouTube, and sometimes I take some of the stuff I learned and I'm like, that could probably work somewhere. You just always got to be ready. There's always some kind of information that you might learn from your day-to-day. You might hear something in conversation with someone. You might learn something from one of your classes. Maybe you see something when you're waiting at the bus station that you didn't even realize. There's always a piece of information, and you never know what you might use. So try to have an open mind about everything and just absorb. When you go outside, that's what you should be doing, just absorbing. Because there are so many things that you can learn about that can maybe inspire you. It can help you create your characters in a cooler setting, whatever it may be. Like for me, I've honestly thought of so many ideas sitting in class and just absorbing some of the stories that you learn about. Like, for example, when I learned about American history, I really found Martin Luther King Jr. to be like this fascinating figure, and I really like the whole story of fighting against oppression. So you never know. I mean, I didn't think I'd be interested in American history, but now I have something else that I can utilize in my stories. Now, this is the most important habit. So if you haven't been paying much attention, I would recommend to really hone in on this part. The most important habit that every writer needs to do is to fail. Yeah, that's right. You heard me right. You need to fail. To actually get really good at writing, you need to embrace all the failures and you need to persevere through it. I've heard somewhere that failure and shame is among the worst psychological feeling that you can feel. Like, it is such a painful emotion. But if you can power through it, you will grow 10 million times faster than everyone around you who can't handle that pain. You got to try over and over again because you don't know what ideas will stick. You need to have fun with the idea of failure and play around with your ideas. You can play around with your characters and see what works and what doesn't. You can waste 4 hours, 5 hours working on something and then end up scrapping the whole thing. But don't think of it as a failure. It's not a failure. Every time that you work on something and it doesn't come out perfectly as you would want, that was a learning experience that made you better. That will make the next time you write more powerful. I know it sounds cliche, but it really is true. Just remember, perfectionism is not a good thing. I know it may sound like it's a good thing and most people make it out to be something positive, but I honestly don't believe it is. Perfectionism kind of makes you over-edit and stay stuck on single things, and this is the reason why writers never end up publishing anything. This is the reason why writers never move on to the next chapter. They're so focused on making this one part perfect. Nothing will ever be perfect. Yes, you should make it as good as possible, but it will never be perfect. That's why you need to keep on failing repeatedly until you can make it as good as possible. Look, if you ever actually want to see your book published on a shelf, you're just going to have to move on to that section. It may not be perfect right now, but you need to move on. You need to get it done. And then your first draft is going to be horrible and you're going to hate it and you're going to want to delete the whole thing. It's fine. You failed to write a good story your first try. Big deal. Rewrite it again, and then another time. If you do these 3 habits every single day, I guarantee you, your writing will improve and your creativity and your ideas will flow so much easier.